Hey students, we're going to continue our talk about taxation, but also talk about the federal government and how it spends its revenue. First, we're going to look at how the government makes its budget. The federal budget's fiscal year is from October 1st to September 30th of the next year. The executive office is responsible for preparing the federal budget and presenting it to Congress. This is done out of the Office of Management and Budget, or the OMB. After the executive office submits the budget, it has to be approved by both houses of Congress. It first goes to the House of Representatives. Remember that it is the House of Representatives that has the power to appropriate money. The budget is broken down to 12 major expenditure subcommittees to be debated and voted for approval. Once the subcommittees agree on their respective selections, the bill will be placed on the floor of the House to be approved. If it is approved, the bill is sent to the Senate. The Senate may approve the bill sent to them by the House or create their own version of the bill. If this happens, if this happens and there are major differences, the Senate and the House will have a joint conference to work out a compromise. Both houses may seek advice from the Congressional Budget Office, or CBO, to evaluate the impact of the budget and project future revenue and expenditures of that budget. Finally, the bill is submitted to the president. The president may choose to veto the bill. If this happens, Congress will have to create a new budget, or it can pass a continuing budget resolution. A continuing budget resolution is an agreement to fund the government and the agencies at its previous levels or increase in some areas. If this does not happen, we can experience a government shutdown where only essential sectors of the government operate, such as Medicare, Social Security, and national defense, and the rest will operate without any funding.
Why government matters.
Really? It's never too early to learn that the government is a greedy piglet that suckles on a taxpayer's teat until they have sore, chapped nipples. I'm gonna need a different metaphor to give this 9-year-old. What's your name, ma'am?
Lauren Burkus.
Lauren. My name is Ron Swanson, and I'm gonna tell you everything you need to know about the miserable, screwed up world of local government.
You have mustard in your mustache.
Don't sass me, Burkus. Let's get started. Life, liberty, and property. It's John Locke. This is your lunch. Now, you should be able to do whatever you want to with this, right? If you want to eat all of it, great. If you want to throw it away in the garbage, that's your prerogative. But here I come, the government. And I get to take 40% of your lunch. And that, Lauren, is how taxes work.
But that's not fair.
You're learning. Uh-oh. Capital gains tax.
Now, when a budget is passed, it usually produces a budget a budget surplus. Okay, I almost could not say that. Or it produces a budget deficit. A surplus is when the government takes in more money than it spends. And a deficit is when the government spends more than it takes in. So how does the government take in money, and how does it spend that money? You already know that the government takes in money via taxes, and those taxes take different forms. The federal government gets a majority of its funding from income tax, payroll taxes, corporate taxes, and some other smaller taxes. The income tax is taken out of people's paychecks and is in accordance to the progressive tax that is in place. Payroll taxes are taxes on wages and salaries to finance Social Security and Medicare costs. The official name of this tax is the Federal Insurance Contribution Act tax, or FICA. The corporate income tax is a tax that corporations pay on its profits. The government is able to do this because corporations are recognized as legal persons. The government has other taxes that produce some revenue, but these are not the major forms of revenue for the government. Alright, we know how the government gets some of its money. Let's take a look at how government spends our money. Now, a majority of the budget goes towards the government agencies and programs that need to be funded. But there are parts that will fund politicians of both sides of the aisle's pet projects. Now, they do this for several reasons. This could be for corruption, kickbacks to campaign supporters, or they keep them in office. These are known as earmarks or pork spending. Just to give you an idea of what that looks like, $9 million was spent on fruit fly quarantine. That is to provide research, eradication, or quarantine of fruit flies. Now, $3.8 million has been appropriated to stop the demolition of part of a baseball stadium because people wanted to remember something of the baseball stadium. And then $90 million was appropriated for tank upgrades that the Army didn't even want. They said they didn't need them. And then there's much more. Now, remember, this is your money that funds all of this. This is the money that you earn at your job. The money that your parents, your grandparents, and everyone else earns to spend on nonsense. Remember, money represents your stored time and labor, and your representatives wastes a lot of it.
One of the great debates of our time is about how much of your money should be spent by the state and how much you should keep to spend on your family. Let us never forget this fundamental truth. The state has no source of money other than the money people earn themselves. If the state wishes to spend more, it can do so only by borrowing your savings or by taxing you more. And it's no good thinking that someone else will pay. That someone else is you. There is no such thing as public money. There is only taxpayers' money.
The government also has mandatory spending where they have no choice but to fund those programs. An example is Social Security. The government is required by law to fund the program regardless if it increases or what that increase is. The government also has discretionary spending where the spending program has to be approved annually. This includes defense, education, energy, agriculture, and every other part of the budget. Historically speaking, the United States has run a deficit budget and results in deficit spending. The government has to fund these programs somehow, and it cannot be done by simply printing more money. The money machine does not go brr. That does not happen. The way government covers the deficit is by borrowing. Currently, borrowing is the second largest income of money for the government. Think about that for a moment. Borrowing is the second largest income of money for the government. Now, when the end of the fiscal year comes, the deficit is added to the debt. Remember that the deficit is the amount of money the government does not have in the fiscal year, and the debt is the total amount of money the government has to pay back. There are several negative effects from running a deficit budget, both short-term and long-term. Deficit spending can endanger economic incentives for citizens. The government only has two options when running a deficit budget. It can either borrow or raise taxes. If citizens are aware that the government is spending money recklessly, they're less likely to want to pay more money in taxes. As a result, actually good programs can go unfunded and people can be cheated out of its benefits. If the government does raise taxes, people have less money to spend, and it could cause a chain reaction where businesses fail from less profits, placing people out of work. It also causes a crowding out effect in the financial market. We will talk more about the crowding out effect the next time that we are together. Until then, please make sure that you are washing your hands, don't touch your face, and stay at home.